have a mathematical chance. 5 are locked in a fight for points. That battle will affect the way they drive today. 5th in the points is Mario Andretti, who drove a smooth and smart race to win on the Phoenix Mile. The team can do well, but often falls victim to outside forces. At the Pocono 500, Mario is leading when he tangled with Dick Simon, ending the run. The trick for Mario now is simply to finish.
Usually whenever we finish in the points. We've had a good record of first, second, and third finishes, but we haven't had enough finishes. That's been the problem. And however, there are 3 races left and 60 points, 60, a little more than that. So we're looking positive on that, and certainly the team feels positive, and chances are still with us.
4th in the points is Emerson Fittipaldi, just off of 2 wins, who is leading at the Meadowlands on the way to his first season victory. Challenging was Al Unser Jr. They hit, sending Emo into the barrier. Emerson Fittipaldi was furious.
Oh, for sure, the crash at the Meadowlands disturbed my chance in the championship. But now, you know, the last 2 wins, I have 100 points, and it's looking good for the remaining 3 races. Except the top 3 drivers in the championship are winners, and that will be tough because it doesn't matter. I can finish really well, but they cannot finish so well.
Bad fortune for Fittipaldi was good for Little Al. He won at Toronto on the Meadowlands. He's 3rd in the points, 9 behind the leader. His foundation for a championship is based on careful planning.
Driving a race car, it's not something that you go to the racetrack and you just jump in and drive the race car and then leave. I think you have to work at it 24 hours a day. You have to put your best effort towards it. And if you work long enough and hard enough, then the success is going to come to you.
Bobby Rahal is 2nd, 6 points back. Rahal is a planner, a tactician. His technique has been to drive to finish. He won the Pocono 500, but problems like this at Mid-Ohio can stop a 3rd straight championship season.
We've had to rely on consistency because of the engine differences, but we're in a position now, I think, where we can be aggressive and win some more races.
Danny Sullivan is the points leader, but crashes like this one at Indy slowed his start. After the Indianapolis 500, he held only 2 points. Today, it's 129. Hard driving and constant pressure is his style. It was reflected here at Portland, where he scored his first season win. But putting the pressure on others can sometimes backfire, as it almost did for Danny.
It started off really a rough year, then it turned around really at Milwaukee. You know, I've never won a championship, and we've been having a good season, so the only thing really left for us to do is go for it.
9 times this season, the points lead has changed hands. 200 miles lie ahead on the fastest mile oval in the world. Who will lead when the checkered flag falls? Today, it's the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix, and it's brought to you by Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. By Mobil 1 synthetic motor oil. Mobil 1, isn't your car worth the extra protection? By Nuprin, get big pain relief from these little yellow pills, available in tablets and caplets. And by Domino's Pizza. Why go out for pizza when there's Domino's Pizza? Nobody delivers better. We're located at Pennsylvania International Raceway, just outside the town of Nazareth, about 80 miles from both New York and Philadelphia, in the Pennsylvania Hills, a magnificent little track. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and we join the IndyCar season now right in the middle of a points fight. Danny Sullivan leads the points, but only for the moment. As we take a look at the top 6, any one of these men could be the champion at the end of the season, and any one of the top 3 could walk away from this track with the points lead. Now, there are 20 points available for the lead, an extra point if you lead the most laps. If we take a look at the entire chart of points, every one extremely important. Because of that, there is a great deal of pressure. Sam, that pressure, what kind of effect is it having on the driver's moves?
Well, I think the pressure has made Bobby Rahal a little bit defensive. Throughout the season, his car has been just that little bit slower than the others, and he's had to react to situations rather than create them. Al Unser Jr., by contrast, is going for broke. 3 years ago, he was involved in a stretch drive for the championship. He turned conservative, drove for points, and lost the championship by 1 point. He isn't going to do that again. Danny Sullivan has never been this close to a major championship. And he is responding with a focus, an intensity, and a maturity that is growing every day. Personally, although with 3 races to go, this is kind of a wild guess, I think Sullivan will emerge as the champion.
But there is no question, Danny Sullivan is feeling the pressure. Now let's go to Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, as you said, Danny Sullivan has already scored 1 valuable point by planking his car on the pole. But, Danny, the way you got to the top of the championship chase was by being aggressive. And this racetrack, if you're a little too aggressive, can turn around and bite you. What's your strategy?
Well, I think we're going to have to be pretty conservative early on and then maybe more aggressive at the end of the race.
Are you feeling the pressure, though, by being in the points chase? This is your first time into it.
Well, it's true. There's a lot of pressure, most of it within. The team hasn't said anything, but all the press, everything is just a natural build-up. But that's part of being here, and I love every minute of it.
Well, some say that you don't become a full-blown race driver until you've been in a points chase. He's in one now. Paul?
Well, the track here at Nazareth that challenges Danny Sullivan and the rest is a terrific little facility. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful for the spectators. Roger Penske bought it a couple of years ago. It used to be dirt, and he paved it over, and last year they ran their first IndyCar race on the paved surface. For the drivers, it's a very challenging facility. Now, Bobby Unser, it's tough to get around. You have to stay on top of your car. You have to constantly hustle the machine, and passing is really tough.
Well, Paul, this is an action track. It's beautiful and it's smooth, and it's a tri-oval. Yesterday, for example, Danny Sullivan set a new world closed course mile record here at over 172 miles an hour. Now, that also makes passing a little difficult here. A tri-oval versus a normal oval is 3 short straightaways against 2 normally long straightaways. Last year, for example, 3 cars while leading this race were knocked out trying to pass the other cars. Now, I think this is going to make for a real good race. It's going to be a good, fast race.
One driver here, Bobby Rahal, has an entirely different power plant in the Judd engine. It develops its power in an entirely different manner, and Bobby's had to be very careful with that this year. It may affect the way he drives here today, and that may affect his run for the championship. Let's go to Brian Hammonds.
Bobby Rahal has gotten to where he is, second in the point standings, by being a little conservative. Bobby, this late in the year, with this much at stake, can you continue to be conservative?
Well, I don't know if we've really been conservative. Had to run awfully hard. But no, we can't be. We got to get to the end. We got to make sure we finish every race, but we got to try to win every one, too.
Your strategy today on this track, can you race the Chevrolets, or is survival the key?
Well, we've got to be able to race the Chevys. You know, survival is definitely a key. It was last year. I don't see it being any different this year. But no, we got to try to run up front.
Bobby Rahal has been consistent. He's finished 11 of the 12 races this year. Paul?
Well, the teams are set. The drivers now prepared, ready to do battle with one another. And we'll be back for the start of the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix right after this. Drivers are now strapped back into their cars, ready to go racing at Nazareth for the 2nd year. Here to give the command is Fred Hohaji, the president of the sales group of Bosch Corporation.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
So each of the drivers now, alone with individual thoughts, individual plans, a final run of the tactics to be faced yet today. 200 miles, 200 laps on this extraordinarily flat circuit here at Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania International Raceway. Rick Mears, poised, ready from his position in the front row. Reflections of Indianapolis with the Penske team occupying both front row positions. World driving champion Emerson Fittipaldi sits prepared in his car. Danny Sullivan, who is the pole sitter here at Nazareth, stares ahead, ready to go racing. All the drivers poised and ready to go. So now let's take a look at the starting field for this 200-mile run. On the pole is Danny Sullivan, his first oval pole. He set a world's closed course record in qualifying. Alongside is his teammate Rick Mears, whose last win came on a mile course at Milwaukee. The second row on the inside is Mario Andretti in front of a hometown crowd. He won here on the dirt in 1969. Alongside is Emerson Fittipaldi, just off of 2 wins. He has never led on an oval. On the inside of the third row is Bobby Rahal, looking for his 3rd straight IndyCar championship. On the outside is Al Unser Jr. He has never won on an oval. The fourth row on the inside is Raul Boesel, the defending world endurance champion. Alongside is Michael Andretti, the defending champion here at Nazareth. The fifth row on the inside is Ireland's Derek Daly. His best finish was on the Milwaukee Mile, a 3rd place 1 year ago. Alongside is Michigan's Scott Creighton, who led 11 laps on the Phoenix Mile in April. The sixth row on the inside is Roberto Guerrero, who won his first IndyCar race on a mile at Phoenix. Alongside is Theo Bobby. His last IndyCar win came in 1983, again at the Phoenix Mile. On the inside of the seventh row is Arie Luyendyk of Holland. He has not finished in his last 7 races. Alongside is Howdy Holmes, a 10-year IndyCar veteran, but a rookie here at Nazareth. The eighth row on the inside is Kevin Cogan, still recovering from a broken arm. His only win came on a mile course. Alongside is John Jones, already the kart Rookie of the Year. The ninth row on the inside is the grand champion A.J. Foyt. 33 of his 67 IndyCar wins have come on mile courses. Alongside is young John Andretti. It is his first race since a serious crash in the Pocono 500. Inside the 10th row is Tony Bettenhausen. With 3 top 10 finishes, he's having the best season of his career. On the outside is Dick Simon. At age 55, he's the oldest driver in IndyCar racing. So the cars are all started now, rolling on the field, beginning to scrub the tires in. The temperature here at 63 degrees is great for the engines, as is the humidity. But there is a threatening forecast. At the moment, it's mostly cloudy here, but there is the possibility of some rain lying just off to the west of the track here. That certainly will figure into the tactics today. The track here, Bobby Unser mentioned it, it's a tri-oval, extraordinarily flat, though there is an elevation change of 34 feet as they run downhill down the backstretch, adding just that much more excitement to the drivers in their run. All of the teams now have moved their separate pieces of equipment back behind the pit walls, prepared and ready to go. The posting here of awards, perhaps to the driver, even though it's a great deal of money, not nearly as important as the points that might be gained by those in the points fight. So we have, in fact, a race within a race. That for the win here, and then, of course, in the points battle for the PPG Cup. Now, last year, the tightness of this course figured into the ultimate win by Michael Andretti. Here is Mario Andretti and Johnny Rutherford as they tangled. Visibility problems coming off of the 4th turn. Very difficult to see the cars behind you. That wasn't the only situation. Here was Roberto Guerrero, who was simply pinned right into the wall. Again, coming off of the 4th turn. Certainly the drivers have given that some definite consideration today. Fortunately, last year there were no injuries as a result of those crashes. The field now rolling about, beginning to form up into their rows of 2. 20 cars ready to start this event here today. There's Michael Andretti. He is the defending champion. Of course, Nazareth is the hometown of the Andretti family. Mario has lived here since the family, in fact, came to the United States when he was a small boy. The green flag now flies, and Rick Mears jumps into the lead from the outside of the front row as Danny Sullivan drops in behind, followed by Mario Andretti and then Emerson Fittipaldi. Just that quickly, onto the backstretch, Rick Mears. Mario Andretti in pursuit of Danny Sullivan, who lies in second, as Mario closes in just a bit, but a bit of a surprise as Rick Mears jumped out into the front, now heading around and completing lap number 1. Rick Mears out in front of this field.
Paul, what happened was Rick's oval track experience started showing up at the start. He absolutely legged that thing hard, jumped right into the lead, and that Rick is telling everybody he's going to be tough today.
Car number 16, Tony Bettenhausen, dropped into the pits at the time of the start.
Of the championship contenders, of course, it's Danny Sullivan, who's made by far the best start. Both Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal are well back already.
So Rick Mears now receiving a challenge by his teammate Danny Sullivan as Penske cars lead 1 and 2. Chevrolet Power qualified for the top 4 position, and then Bobby Rahal with his Jug Power comes in just behind those machines. But Chevrolet obviously very dominant this year. The only other victories coming off of Bobby Rahal's motor. Now the top 3 have separated just a bit. Rick Mears continues to watch his teammate Danny Sullivan just behind, and Mario Andretti is not letting either of those out of his sight.
Well, the first 2 cars, Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan, have identical Penske chassis. The important thing on them is Rick Mears, if you notice right there, has what we call the hubcap wheels, the solid outside dish wheel, as you can see there. Danny chose not to run it, and this makes the cars handle a little bit different as far as which one understeers and which one doesn't understeer. Choice of a driver.
The Penske team has decided to come to the line at this race with proven winners. The yellow car that belongs to Rick Mears is the one in which he won the Indianapolis 500. Interesting because it is not a short track design car, and the one that Danny Sullivan drives is the one that he won at Portland with. And already they began to overtake the back of the field. That was the 16 car of Tony Bettenhausen that was coming out of the pits as the first 3 positions came around.
Traditionally in oval racing, the idea is that the slower cars stay to the inside and the faster cars make the passes on the outside. That is always very dangerous, of course, for the faster cars. In the drivers' meeting this morning, it was decided by the drivers to try it the other way around here. In other words, for the slower cars to stay wide and let the faster cars dive down on the inside, which is the way it's done in road racing. Whether the thing is going to be tough to execute as the race goes on because it's against your instincts or not, I don't know. What do you think, Bobby?
Well, I think the important thing for people to realize here, Stan, that in making that rule, this is a 170-mile-an-hour racetrack, and it's only 1 mile around, and people have to keep realizing that as they watch our race today. Just extremely fast place.
Yeah, and another thing, too, all the drivers have been telling me that the line on which you run is incredibly narrow. You don't really have a lot of choice where to run through these turns if you want to run fast.
Well, the leaders have moved out and begun to run static. We look at first and second. Rick Mears followed by Danny Sullivan. Then in the lineup, Mario Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Al Unser Jr. is running 5th, followed by Michael Andretti. Then Bobby Rahal, who dropped back just a bit. 8th is currently Derek Daly. 9th is Raul Boisel, and Scotty Brayton is currently running in 10th, followed by Teo Fabi in the Porsche. But now Mario Andretti closes in as, again, they encounter slower traffic, and the leaders are running up on some of the slower cars. On board with Bobby Rahal now, currently riding in the 7th position as Rahal constantly turning here. There's really very little opportunity to rest.
Well, you go from wide. You notice he's right out wide against the track. Now he'll come into number 1 turn right down the bottom, out wide again. That's the reason, Paul, that it's so difficult to pass. Watch how the car goes back and forth. It doesn't give the guy behind much chance to get by.
Back at the front of the field again. Rick Mears out in front. His teammate Danny Sullivan in second place as he continues to try to hold off a charge by Mario Andretti. Then Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr. So we're underway with 11 miles complete of the 200 here at Nazareth. We'll be back. We're back at Nazareth. Rick Mears, the bright yellow number 5, is the leader. In the last 4 oval track races that Rick Mears has actually finished, he has won 3 of them. Rick Mears is out in front, still being chased by his teammate Danny Sullivan. And then riding in 3rd place is Mario Andretti. He is followed by Emerson Fittipaldi. There is Mario. Now, this, of course, is Mario Andretti's hometown. So it's a matter of prestige on the line here. It's very important that he do well as he comes down to challenge Danny Sullivan and closes in right behind. Mario Andretti, that bright white number 6, works his way around the track. Nazareth is important to Mario. It is, after all, entirely the Andretti family home.
We're a very close family, and I married a girl from this town, and she also was very close to her family. So we both just felt much more comfortable just by staying here, staying close to our folks, and it seems like with our kids now, they didn't feel like going anywhere either. They feel like, okay, we'll stay where Dad is, Mom is, and we'll expand on that. And as I said, it's I never found at any time that I've given up anything in my life, certainly by living here. In fact, to the contrary, I just, as I said, I've traveled the world as wide as it is and as long as it is, and for many years, and I've always enjoyed coming home here again.
And it is a beautiful home that Mario Andretti home to. Matter of fact, it's just across the street from the school that the kids went to. Michael Andretti has built his home just a couple of miles away, and in fact, from the back of Michael's home, he can see his father's house down in the valley a bit below. And Mario, like most race drivers, has expanded on the house just by adding rooms and little additions, with probably about the nicest recreation room you'd ever want to see, with a complete panorama of the start of a Grand Prix race. Now Mario Andretti runs in third place, still chasing Danny Sullivan.
Mario, Paul, is in a good position in this race because although he has a chance at the championship, the only realistic chance he has is by winning this race outright. He won't feel bad about it if he crashes trying to do that. Whereas Danny Sullivan, who he's right behind here, needs to protect his championship situation. Mario can race loose and aggressive. Danny has to be watching out for everything.
You heard Mario's comments, though, that when he does finish, he finishes in the points, and he certainly hopes to keep that car alive today.
Well, he's a good oval track racer. He's been doing these circle tracks for a long time. Tremendous amount of experience. Now, as Stan alluded earlier, Danny Sullivan is really on a hot streak right now, but it's going to be tough to hold Mario off at a track like this.
Danny Sullivan running in second place. Michael Andretti now begins to pick up the pace. He has been lying back in sixth position, but now he appears to be on the move as well.
The story minute to minute is really going to depend on the driver's luck and daring in getting by the slower cars. Right there we saw Mario drop back significantly because he had to hesitate behind the car of Howdy Holmes. Howdy did not give Mario running room. Mario had to hesitate. He was wise to do it, and that's why Danny was able to open that gap.
A moment ago, the top of the order has remained the same, but Emerson Fittipaldi, who was running in fourth, began to drop back and, in fact, allowed both Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. to dart out and around him. So the question now becomes, was that just the hesitation of a moment, a car that blocked him on the track, or is there something wrong with Emerson Fittipaldi? We'll check that report for you. On board again with Bobby Rahal.
Of the top drivers, Paul, don't you feel Emerson is arguably the least experienced on this kind of track? You see Rahal going into what we're calling the third turn. It then becomes the fourth turn there.
And Emerson Fittipaldi, while we watch from Rahal's onboard camera, we suggested there might be a problem. Here is Emerson Fittipaldi, the 20 car, heading into Pat Patrick's pits for some quick service. The crew falls on the car. Let's go to the pits in Jackaroo.
Well, what has happened, Paul Page, is a small nut on one of the wings has come dislodged, so they came in to check that because they felt it may have been affecting the handling on the machine. But lo and behold, now you can see they're adjusting the front wing. They did not make any changes there, except all four tires. So he's back out, but that's a costly early stop.
Well, when this track is as small as it is, it took over a mile around, the car is getting around at incredible pace. When you come into the pits under the green like that, especially as an unscheduled stop for a repair, then you fall behind very rapidly.
Emerson was stopped for just over 18 seconds, but the effect was that he lost more than one lap out on the racetrack.
Emerson Fittipaldi fell all the way back through the field to 15th during that stop.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. It won't make an awful lot of difference right now, Paul, if everybody else stops under the green. But if they have a yellow pretty soon, Emil's in serious trouble today.
Now, the Fittipaldi car, we'll probably see it again here in a few moments. The Fittipaldi car is running a new wing. They're trying to buy wing. In other words, two elements of the wing on the back of his car, hoping to get better downforce. And so they'll be watching that situation as well. Back with the leader, Rick Mears, car number 5. Out in front of the field now by a full 7.5 seconds over his teammate Danny Sullivan.
The green car that he is trying to lap, that Mears is trying to lap, is the much talked about Porsche with Theo Fabi driving it. Porsche, of course, is having a disappointing season, not as good as they hoped for. The famous German manufacturer, I think it was thought in Europe, would just dominate this scene. They have not been able to do that, but they're going to be back next year with much emphasis on this program and high hopes.
Sam, I don't really think that Fabi is going so slow right now. I think what it is Rick Mears is setting a blistering pace. He's even pulling away from Danny Sullivan right now. It seems to be an awful, awful rapid pace so early in the race.
So we look again at Emerson Fittipaldi now riding just in front of the second place car of Danny Sullivan. But Fittipaldi is 2 laps back now, running in 15th place. So his interest in the championship fight, the points that he desperately needs at the moment, he's not anywhere near doing well.
Well, and of course, Danny now sees ahead of him. Here comes Bobby Rahal into the pits. This has to be unscheduled too, Paul.
Yes, far too early for Bobby Rahal to come into the pits, so we'll watch carefully as he makes the stop and the crew falls on the car, already up on the jacks. One of the kart officials steps over the wall to make sure that everything is being done safe. That's a rather leisurely stop, actually, though it's 4 tires, and they go to work on the front wing, so handling concerns there as Jim Prescott, now the crew chief, motions that car out, and they've stalled the car. Now, if they've been bright, then they've already put the inertial starter over the wall and had it ready to go. Let's go to the pits.
Well, they've just restarted Bobby Rahal's car after that pit stop. And again, Paul Page, here is what is developing down on pit road, and this could really play havoc with all the front runners. 3 cars of the front runners have already been on pit road. We talked about Emerson Fittipaldi. Well, in between that and Bobby Rahal, Derek Daly came in. All 3 have blistered the right front tire, and I mean blistered it to the point that it had to come off. They couldn't wait for a caution. This is going to create some severe tire problems for all the front runners. Let's go back to you.
Well, it certainly did for Bobby Rahal, a 30-second stop. Bobby, when we talk about blistering the tire.
Well, that means the tire's slipping too much on the pavement, and probably what it's meant today is they had the car set really good yesterday, but they've had some other races previously. They lay down a little bit of rubber, and sometimes the rubber off the Indy cars doesn't match that, and they slip a little bit until they get the track off where it's good again. Plus, you must remember, it rained all last night, so they're just have excessive speed. Remember we said a while ago that Rick was setting a blistering pace.
Now we take a look at a battle for 3rd place developing as Mario Andretti, the number 6 car, is being challenged by Al Unser Jr. And Little Al comes up, gets around him, and Little Al drops into 3rd place. Again, here is manifest that championship fight.
It's probably way too early to say this, and I don't want to bring bad luck on anybody, but there's great care being demonstrated by many of the back markers so far in this race. I think everybody, and we're seeing Michael Andretti now come into the pits, everybody is fully aware of the risks involved at these very high speeds here.
Dan, it looks like Mario is slowing down a little bit. I would guess that he's probably
Michael
having
Andretti in the
tire problems also.
Bobby, what can they do as we watch Michael Andretti complete his stop? What kind of changes can they make to stop that problem?
They're all adjusting their wings, Paul. They'll just give the front end a little bit more traction, probably alleviate the problem. Plus, they'll wear out the rubber that's already on the track.
So out in front of the field, it is Rick Mears as he closes down behind the 5th place car of Raul Boisel. So Rick Mears is slicing through this field just as fast as he can. Sullivan is 2nd, Al Unser Jr. is 3rd, Mario is 4th. We'll be back. We're back at Pennsylvania International Speedway, the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix, as Mario Andretti continues to battle with Al Unser Jr. It is a fight for 3rd place. Both of them desperately need any points that they can get. That 11 car is the Kanapensky entry of Kevin Cogan, who is running well back in the field, but still managing to pace with the leaders. Saturday, ABC's college football features a Pac-10 battle. The number 2 ranked UCLA Bruins take on the Washington Huskies. Or it's a Big Ten matchup when Michigan State hosts the Iowa Hawkeyes. Check the local listings for the game in your area. Action will begin live at 3:30 Eastern next Saturday, right here on ABC Sports.
Well, Paul, they're just still going the blistering pace. Rick Mears is running laps at 167 miles an hour, including a little bit of traffic. And he's just causing the rest of the guys to run the tires too hard. But I'm looking really hard to see if Rick's tire is going to let go in the front before he gets in the first pit stop.
If blistering tires are indeed a problem, which certainly they are, then how will the Penske team, how did they decide that it was a situation that they've obviously already dealt with?
Probably from the experience of Rick Mears himself. Rick is one of the finest oval track development drivers that there is here today, and I think Rick's just capable of setting his car a little bit better than the other guys.
Well, now down in the pits, Jack Arud is ready with a further update. Jack?
Paul, had another driver to the blister brigade. Michael Andretti came in, changed tires, a blistered right front. Now, what is a blistered front tire? You know, they say performance comes from where the tire meets the road. Well, as you can see here, it begins to bubble up. It literally begins to tear right off the carcass. You can't drive a race car with these kind of tires. And as you've alluded to, the only thing you can do is change the tires and adjust the wings. And that's what all the top teams are doing down here in these early pit stops. Back to you.
So everyone concerned with that situation over blistering tires. Now, not as much a dangerous situation as a handling situation. When that starts to happen, you know it immediately because the car no longer handles for you.
That's right, Paul. The front end just starts washing out. They just go slower and slower and slower. But more importantly than that, it upsets the whole game plan for the rest of the race. Now they have to recalculate, reevaluate what they're going to do the rest of the day.
48 miles are complete. Rick Mears has led right from the green flag. Danny Sullivan has chased him from the same green. Al Unser Jr. has managed to move up into third place. Mario Andretti is now running in fourth. Raul Boisel, with an excellent run for the Shearson car, is now running in fifth place. Let's go to the pits, Brian Hammond.
Paul, the Newman-Haas team has made Mario Andretti very much aware of the problems other drivers are having with the blister. Now, Mario's trying to conserve his tires by taking it a little bit easy until his first scheduled pit stop somewhere around lap 73. So he's hoping to keep his tires from blistering until his first scheduled stop. Paul?
Well, depending on the, well, there's Mario Andretti's situation, which has not been pleasant with regard to his oval runs. And so many times, Sam, we've seen Mario look as if he has hands down the race. It belongs to him. And then luck as a factor comes in.
Mario's career, Paul, has been so long that it really makes you wonder if luck hasn't balanced out, however, through all the years. He was lucky in some respects, I think, when he won the World Championship. He's been lucky at other times. It's just been, it seems as if, especially at Indy, which is focused upon so much by so many people, that Mario has been unlucky.
Well, our championship battle continuing to be affected here as Emerson Fittipaldi now for the second time comes in. Again, it's a tire change as he tries to find something on the car that will work for him. He wiggles the car back and forth as he leaves, scrubbing the tires further.
See, here's a case of a car and perhaps a team which just cannot get their setup right at all. When this tire begins to blister, incidentally, it's no mystery to the driver. I mean, you feel it, Bobby, don't you, with the vibration. You know you've got a pit. There's no question of continuing with it.
Instantly, and it's just a problem of not having the car set right and into the new wings.
With 53 miles complete, Rick Mears is still the leader, followed by Sullivan, Unser Jr., Andretti, and Boisel. And the championship fight remains the same. We'll be back with more right after this. Back at Pennsylvania International now, the regularly scheduled stops begin to take place. Danny Sullivan comes in for Penske service. The crew falls on that car. 3 tires changed immediately. But again, that precision drill of the Penske team we have seen so many times before. In just 12 seconds, Danny Sullivan is back and rolling once again.
Well, it's obviously that he had tire problems. He fell back for a while, he got up for a while, but I think maybe Rick might be having problems right now.
Well, the team has also laid out the equipment for Rick Mears, who is already on the pit road and making his run now for the first of what should be 2 scheduled stops. The leader right from the green flag now will, in all likelihood, give up the lead, at least for a time, as they cycle through the pit stops.
He's got to be having tire problems, too, my guess is, Paul, because he's in the pits too early.
So Rick Mears makes his stop. Again, the crew right on top of that car.
We're on lap 58, Paul. It was thought they would go to at least lap 70 to 73, somewhere in there before they stop. So this is a preliminary one, but an early one even for the Penske team. But I think they can still get through the race with just one more if the rubber builds up on the track and the tire problem is ameliorated. Look, there he is, Rick Mears dicing with Al Unser Jr.
As he comes back into the traffic, he comes alongside Al Unser Jr., who is, in fact, the leader of the race. But, of course, with that stop and the length of the run-in and the run-out, they actually enter and exit the pits on the backstretch here. Rick has actually fallen a lap behind.
Let me give you a sense of the mood here. It is heavily overcast. The entire perimeter, the horizon as we see it, has what could be rain clouds on it, and they could move in, at any moment. So there's a sense of tension here quite beyond the developments on the race, on the track itself. Remember, you must complete half the race distance plus 1 lap. In this case, it means 101 laps for the race to be official. And part of the strategy may depend right now on whether the crews think it's going to rain.
Well, with the stop by Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan, Al Unser Jr. is pulled forward and now occupies the front spot of the field, chased by Mario Andretti. Andretti and Raul Boisel. But of course, those cars have not made their stops, and it should go back to the order it was, except for the factor of how fast those pit crews do their work when it comes time for both Mario and Little Al to stop.
Well, in this case, too, it's how much time extra beyond the refueling and changing of tires did they take to adjust the front wings. Now, Rick Mears' stop was longer by several seconds. You see Little Al Unser there. He is leading the race right now. He has won 3 races so far this year. If he was able to win or even just be second in this race today, it would do an immense amount for his title hopes, because his team didn't qualify well, and they didn't expect to do that well on this track. They qualified 6th. He was looking forward to the next 2 races, which are road races. Right now, he's looking incredibly good in the championship.
Well, this is great fortune for him in the Rick Gallis mount, the number 3 car. In fact, if the season were to end at this moment, Al Unser Jr. currently leads the points, followed by Danny Sullivan, Bobby Rahal, Mario Andretti, and Rick Mears has bettered his position as he slides up as well. Then Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go to the pits and Jack.
Well, Paul, tires, tires, tires. That's the name of the game here. Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan, blistered right fronts as well. See if we can get a quick word with Roger Penske. Roger, the blistering problem, you didn't anticipate that. Everybody's got it. What have you done to your cars?
Well, we came in, that was our minimum that we wanted to come in on, and Rick said the car's a little bit loose. We had just a small speck on the tires, so I think we're going to be all right. We're just going to adjust pressures on this set.
When you adjust the pressure, you also are going to adjust a little bit of the driving style as well, and maybe try to conserve the tires?
Well, I think Rick's the guy who's conservative. He knows that we might have a problem, but I think they look all right now.
Well, that's the story from the Penske pit, but as we've said, every team that's come onto pit road has had at least one blister tire, namely the right front. Back to you.
And another team has made their presence on pit road as Mario Andretti in the 6th car stops. But look at this. Al Unser Jr., just a slight display of smoke at the back of the car. Bobby, this isn't a routine roll into the pits for the leader, Al Unser Jr.
No, his pit stop, 67 lap, Paul. It's right on time that way, but I think he's coming in too slow. He's got some sort of a serious problem. If he's smoking, he's either got an engine gone or a transmission.
Serious? It could be terminal. Let's go to the pits and Brian Hammonds.
We're trying to get some comments from Rick Gallis. He says, no, let's see what's going on here. Here comes Little Al rolling into the pits. He's not under power. There is no power from this car. Rick, what's the problem?
I think the engine blew.
Blown in? Little Al is done for the day, Paul.
It's obvious, and he knew it right from the get-go. He climbs out of the car.
I hate to see this, Paul, because it could be decisive in the championship. And with tomorrow coming up as the 100th anniversary of the birth of T.S. Eliot, the great American poet, let me just quote one of his famous lines: "Not with a bang, but a whimper." I hate to see Al go out this way.
No points for Al Unser Jr. Now riding over Raul Boisel, who is in the 30 car and is the leader of this race. The Shearson team has to be excited that this young man, who has struggled so hard this year to get the team going, get the car up to speed, is now running in the lead here at Pennsylvania International. The young Brazilian, one of the nicest men that you'd ever like to meet in the sport. Extremely quick and extremely good with a championship in the world endurance cars. By the way, Teo Fabi now runs in 2nd place as a result of this situation, and he hasn't finished in the top 5 since June of 1984 when he was 3rd at Portland. But now the 30 car heads for pit service from Team Shearson as Boisel, the leader, brings it in, and Teo Fabi should in fact be next to take a look at a pit stop, and that, as suspected, would bring Rick Mears back to the front of this field.
We have just a lot of problems today. They turn the engine to a lot of RPM. The track is very fast. Let's go down to Brian in the pits right now. Brian?
We're with Little Al, whose day was just ended. Al, was it a blown engine?
Yeah, the motor blew up on it.
Were you having tire problems? A lot of people were having blistering front tires. Were you having that same problem?
No, I wasn't having any problem with the tires at all. Rick was calling me on the radio, and he said that Immo did one, Rahal did one, and I don't know why Mears came in. Mears may have had a tire problem also. I don't know, it looked like Danny also blistered a tire because he was going real slow. But my car was working good. Once Rick said something about the tires, I started being real careful in traffic, because that seems to be what's doing it. You know, you lose all your downforce behind another car, and so, but
this really hurt your championship chances. The last 6 oval races. Let's go back to Paul Page.
Well, the Porsche Porsche contingent has to be happy as well as we watch Teo Fabi rejoin the action from his stop, because that car ran one lap in the lead when Boissel came into the pit. So the Porsche contingent at least proves that they now understand the tactics and can get up to the front.
It's interesting, though. This is Porsche's 14th race in IndyCar racing. And, of course, they have yet to win. When Chevrolet made their entry into IndyCar racing, they managed to win their 14th race with Mario Andretti, I believe it was, back at Long Beach in 1987.
So now Rick Mears reassumes the lead, again followed by his teammate Danny Sullivan, then Mario Andretti. We'll be back. 77 miles now complete at Pennsylvania International Raceway. Rick Mears leads it. Danny Sullivan is second, followed by Mario Andretti. Raul Boissel with really an excellent spot and stop for his car. Dropped from the lead only to fourth place. Teo Fabi dropped only to fifth place. Andretti is now sixth, and seventh is Roberto Guerrero. Fittipaldi is eighth. John Andretti up to ninth, and Scott Brayton is running 10th. But Rick Mears is the dominant factor here. You know, they constantly look for new technology, ways to go faster or at least understand better. Earlier in the week, Brian Hammonds looked at one of the new pieces of equipment.
The only way to tell how well a car was working on the racetrack was with a stopwatch. Well, nowadays, things are much more high-tech. Take, for example, the latest tachometer. It not only reads the number of revs the engine is turning, but it also records them. And if a driver or chief mechanic wants to find out what revs the engine was turning on a particular lap in a particular corner, the information is right at your fingertip. This data is very important in determining just how well the car is working and how much might be left.
Well, Bobby Unser, a tachometer that records the revolutions at every point on the track. How can that be helpful to you?
Well, the car owners and mechanics, they need to know how tight the engine is turning, Paul. The driver can't watch that tach when they're going 170 miles an hour around a track like this. So they need some sort of a device to tell them what it is. And as I was watching Rick Mears, for example, he pulled the pace off, probably because of that blistering tire problem, about 5 to 8 miles an hour. So Rick is really thinking about the race.
Yeah, but Bobby, as you and I well know, in the old days, we used to like to rev them up a little bit more than the crew chiefs wanted. I don't know about all this technology, telling the crew chiefs all that stuff. There used to be a reset, incidentally, for the tach. You could reach around behind it and reset the tach that had shown how much your car had revved up. Bobby used to reach around behind the dashboard and push that thing and come back in with the revs lower than he actually turned. Until one day, if I recall it right, Bobby, they put a little thumbtack on the back of that reset and caught you. Is that a true story or what?
No, it's not true, but I'll guarantee you one thing. You didn't click it off so the other drivers didn't know how tight. If you ran a lower gear than them, you didn't want anybody to know about it.
Nobody expected you to admit to that anyway, Bobby.
He looked guilty, I want you.
Let's go to the pits again in Jackaroo.
Paul, as you know, under normal circumstances, in a short race like this one, these fellas back here get a chance to watch the event. These are the Goodyear tire busters, the fellas that mount tires, and most IndyCar teams have got plenty of tires for a 200-mile contest. Not today with all the blistering problems. They're working as hard as the pit crews, their counterparts on pit road, because tires has become the key issue here in this race. Back to you.
Out on the circuit itself, the number 10 car of Derek Daly running down in the field after his stop. Irishman now living in Noblesville, Indiana, and in fact has built up quite a business of his own converting sports cars. But his real business is driving race cars. He runs in 14th place, and he is just ahead of Raul Boissel. We look on board here as Boissel runs in 4th position on the course, though not the greatest view over his right shoulder. Let's hope for Boissel it's looking a little bit better. Something on the camera lens there that is just not willing to come off. At the front of the field, it is still Rick Mears. You can see Mario Andretti and his son Michael just behind Raul Boissel. Now Mario currently runs in 3rd place. Michael is running back in 5th. But as far as contests on the circuit, the order has really been determined by the pit stops and attrition. We suggested that everyone might be very careful. That suggestion has now been reinforced by the fact that we also have run to 88 miles without a yellow flag. So they're being very, very careful here. Michael comes down along the inside of his father. It is not a battle for position, but Michael certainly wanted to get past Mario so that he could come back onto the leader lap just as quickly as possible.
It appears like Mario doesn't doesn't want to run up close to somebody. Probably, from what we heard in the pits a while ago, that the bad air is letting the front tire slip a little bit.
It's very important to see these two, father and son, running close together, though, now, gentlemen, because, as you know, they're considering running together on the same team next year. Now, that's interesting because neither driver has ever wanted to run with another driver on his team. In fact, Michael Andretti managed to push Kevin Kogan out of the Craco team a couple of years ago. Mario has refused to run with another person on his team for several years now, and yet they are willing to run with each other next year, they have said, father and son. What exactly that will mean and what it portends for the future, I don't know. There's Michael Andretti, 25 years old. Of course, he's running fifth now. He won this race in decisive style last year, but has not been overly competitive this year so far.
And of course, the crowd here, the hometown crowd, really enjoys seeing Michael and Mario run racing against one another, almost no matter what position they are in. Of course, the crowd, I think, would love to see them up at the front of this field. Rick Mears continues to lead. He is well out in front. Danny Sullivan runs in second place. Mario Andretti is third. Then Michael now is challenging Mario. It is a challenge for the third position. Michael running in fourth. Bossell is fifth. And Teo Fabi now runs in sixth.
The pace is just still awfully fast, Paul. They're still running 160, 165 mile an hour lap, but they seem to have gotten rid of the tire problem. Either the drivers are just not running as close, or they're just not letting the front end slip as much.
Danny Sullivan runs in second place now, continues to chase his teammate.
You know, it's interesting, Paul. Danny Sullivan's season this year has been a microcosm, really, of his whole life. I mean, he started out in life really with a slow start. He left college after 2 semesters. He headed for New York, where he supported himself with a variety of jobs, including a waiter, a janitor, a cab driver. He went to England then to race. Really spotty success, and really the story with Danny Sullivan was always that it was somehow going to be in the future for him. It was never quite right now, and really that's the way it seemed at the beginning of this season too. He had a lot of speed at Indianapolis. He led the first half of that race easily. He was on the pole at Long Beach, but he couldn't start to score the points until suddenly at Milwaukee, the 4th race in, he started to score and score big. And as the season has gone on, as I said in the opening, he's become steadily more mature, steadily more intense. And I think his whole life is really coming together for Danny. We're seeing less Danny the playboy, Danny off doing the magazine things and the black tie parties, and more Danny the racing driver.
I have never seen Danny quite as intense as he appears here. It's suddenly that championship is just beyond his fingertips, and maybe he can reach out and grasp it.
Well, Paul, if you want to be a famous race driver, or one that everybody calls good, you need to be good at oval tracks too, and Danny's trying to overcome that only road race, being good. He wants to be a good oval driver.
So at the front of the field, this car, the number 5 machine of Rick Mears, a Penske car, a second Penske car in second place, Danny Sullivan. Mario Andretti now runs in third, but Mario Andretti jumps into the pits for a stop. Michael Andretti goes into third, and let's go to the pits and Brian Hemmons.
It's a 4-tire stop for Mario Andretti and a full load of fuel now. The last time they made a pit stop, his right front tire was blistered terribly. That may be the problem again. We'll look at it. Yes, I can see the blisters on the tire as they roll it away. So Mario Andretti having some terrible tire problems. Paul?
Mario Andretti joins that struggle to get the car so that it will handle properly. We have not seen a lot of actual contest in positions. The drivers are being incredibly careful here. Mario Andretti gives up third place when he goes in the pits to his son Michael. So at the lead is Rick Mears. We'll be back with more after this commercial message. A word from our local station. Nazareth, Pennsylvania International Raceway, and back with Rick Mears in the lead. He only gave it up for a very short time when he dropped into the pits for fuel. He led from the outside of the front row on the green flag. Now back at the front of the field once again. Danny Sullivan in second. Michael Andretti is third. Mario Andretti, who had to drop into the pits and pick up fresh tires to try and correct a continuing blistering problem, has dropped to fourth. Teo Fabi, the Porsche-powered machine, is running in fifth place, where Old Boy Sell is sixth. Roberto Guerrero is seventh. Eighth is John Andretti. So now, as we approach the halfway point here, a very critical point in this race, the situation is that once they go 101 miles, then it is officially a race. So if there is any rain threatening, and we haven't seen a real sign of that recently, but if there is, the points will be determined. The race will have been run.
As I watched the race, Paul, I noticed that Rick is being closed up on pretty fast by Danny Sullivan, his teammate. Now, this is going to be a good one. Let's watch this for a while. Danny is really working on Rick. Means he must have his chassis working good right now.
There's Scott Brayton as he brings his car into the pits, obviously not under power, and obviously with a critical problem there. Danny Sullivan on the course last time at the line was about a half a second behind his teammate Rick Mears and beginning to challenge. Scott Brayton, Coldwater, Michigan, the son of another great IndyCar driver, Lee Brayton, who has been pretty creative in putting some of his efforts together this year. The Hemmelgarn car here, and he's also been pretty creative in coming up with some paint jobs on the machine. They always seem to use those bright fluorescent colors on their car. Back at the front of the field, here is the 5 car of Rick Mears as he closes down behind Boissel. There was a time, in fact, when some said that Rick Mears was through with his driving, but it has been Rick's will to win that has brought him back to the front of an IndyCar field.
The year was 1984, and this practice accident at Senair Speedway in Montreal sent Rick Mears on a journey that would challenge him both physically and mentally. The impact of the crash shattered both his feet and threatened to end the 2-time Indy 500 champion's driving career. After several operations and weeks of hospitalization, a gaunt yet gallant young Rick Mears attacked the issue of his future.
I have never heard him say possibly 10, 12 weeks before I can walk normally, probably, totally on my own. I'm sure I'll be up and around on crutches and that kind of thing before that.
At first, the focus was simply upon the day when he could get back behind the wheel. But Mears' perseverance paid off, and in just 4 months, he was back in a race car. He could drive better, literally, than he could walk, but a burning question still remained. Could he win, or had the accident affected far more than his physical condition? That question echoed loudly throughout the 1985 season, and in 1986, Rick's attempts to return to victory lane were well fought, yet futile. The frustration to a team and driver that was used to winning became the subject of media and fan whispers. Whispers about whether Rick Mears could ever again win an IndyCar competition. What emerged from Rick Mears was a philosophical outlook.
We had so many good years in a row, and you see a lot of other guys having up years, down years, up years, down years, and they were up and down 2 or 3, 4 times before we ever had a bad season, and so we're very grateful for that. And in that sense, you got to say, hey, we've had so many good ones, we can't complain.
Through the questions, pain, and frustration stood Chris Bowen, who later married Rick Mears.
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't care at that time if he ever stepped foot in another race car again, because he went through a lot. But racing is his first love, and it always will be, and he won't be happy doing anything else. So I supported him like the rest of his family and friends, and that's why he is back today.
Car owner Roger Penske accepted the 2-year winless period as the price necessary for future success.
I certainly wasn't going to leave him down, and neither was the team. And I had confidence just seeing him back at the Speedway to get his award, get up there when he could hardly walk. You knew that he was going to do one thing and get back in that car and be a winner. And obviously, when you look at his record since then, in 1987, he started to run stronger on the road courses. And 88 has been a fantastic year for him. So he's been with us 11 years, and our team basically has, I think the success is the continuity of staying with the right people.
Rick may have been down on his luck, but he refused to take it out on the news media or upon his fans.
I hate to lose. And I think you can ask Chris, you can ask anybody that's close to me, I hate to lose. I'm a very competitive person in whatever I'm doing. But that doesn't mean you have to act like a fool. And I just don't like that look. I never have, and I swore to myself a long time ago I'd never do that.
There are 2 checkered flags, and there they are. Rick Mears comes across the line, slows down as he does it. I think he ran out of fuel as he came to the line. Rick Mears, he's done it. A 2-year dry spell is over.
And that win at Pocono re-established Rick Mears and his winning ways.
Winning that race was just kind of capped it off. That just kind of, we got it under our belt. Okay, now we can just, get back to the normal routine and everything back to as normal as possible.
Normal as possible means winning a 3rd Indy 500 and the top spot in this year's Milwaukee 200, marking the end of a long and painful journey, one that resulted in the reestablishment of Rick Mears as a true champion.
Rick Mears, constantly supported by his wife, Chris, times on the scoring stand. When he was hospitalized in Methodist Hospital recovering, he never gave up any thoughts of driving, but in hours I spent with him, he said that he would concern himself with safety. This is a good example of Rick's concerns. That inside lane is a warm-up lane that he designed at this track so that you could warm your car up at a reasonable speed and never have to get on the race course. So Rick came out of that accident not only bound to improve himself, but to improve the entire sport of IndyCar racing. And he runs at the head of the field. Rick Mears leads it. Second place is his teammate, Danny Sullivan. Michael Andretti, the defending champion, is third, then his father, Mario, and then Teo Fabi in that Porsche-powered machine. Only the Penske team run on the leader lap. We'll be right back. We're back at Pennsylvania International. Paul Page with Sam Posey and Bobby Unser as Rick Mears is still the leader. Car number 5, 120 miles now complete. We have been green flag right from the go. And the problem has developed with tires. The tires are beginning to blister, and that's causing problems for everybody, except, it seems, for Rick Mears. We look at the points as they stand at this moment. Danny Sullivan would still lead, but Bobby Rahal up in second, Al Unser Jr. sitting in third. Rick Mears has improved his situation substantially, and the points obviously have closed down. We talked about driver's mood and pressure, Sam Posey. What would it be now?
Well, I think the way things are looking, with Sullivan pulling away, the focus now becomes on his stretch drive to the championship. You know, I talked to Danny a good deal before the race, and I think the key, and I think it's going to get even better for him, because I believe Rahal is in trouble. I think I see him out there, but in any case, Sullivan has pulled his light into really a sharp focus. As he himself said, it's no longer a question of big city, big lights, bright lights. He is a racing driver who needs very badly. We see Rahal here, seems to be okay, so I may have misread that. He is a man who needs, he doesn't, no,
he's
it is
down
trouble.
He was out of the situation and came to the inside line. So Bobby Rahal, it seems like it's running very rough as he comes down to the pit area. Bobby, perhaps you can add an analysis.
Well, you can see the steering wheel shaking an awful lot. He could have another tire problem. Let's just see if he gets tires or whether he shuts the engine off here, Paul.
Well, Bobby Rahal, car number 1. 2 years in a row, he's been the car champion. Let's go to the pits again.
Well, Paul, it is indeed at least tire related. They came in and they changed tires about 5 laps previously, and he was still complaining of a serious vibration in the car. They've taken some what they call corner weight out of the back of the car, and now they're trying to reduce the tire pressures in hopes that they can solve the tire problem for Bobby Rahal. Back up to you.
Again, Bobby Unser, the situation is trying to get that chassis in balance so that all the tires will bite the surface and give it traction.
It certainly is, and if you'll notice all the camber, in other words, how far that right front tire leans in at the top, what's happening is the center of the tire is blistering, Paul, and one of the heel-up deals for that is to lower the air pressure down so the center doesn't push as hard against the road, more along the outside edges of the tires.
To finish the thought, as we see Bobby Rahal back up to speed, about Danny Sullivan and why what is happening to him right now as we watch this race is so significant. Danny Sullivan knows he's rich enough. He knows he's famous enough. You see Rick Mears flying into the pits, the leader coming into the pits. What Danny Sullivan hasn't yet proven, even to himself, is that he is really a great champion racing driver. In Miami in a few weeks, he may be able to prove that and put that to rest. You see Rick Mears' pit stop as Emerson Fittipaldi has.
We watch Rick Mears as he rolls out, and just down the pits, not far from this point, Emerson Fittipaldi was making a stop and lost the car and did a quick spin. Fortunately, he didn't touch anything, but he did it right as you can see at an entranceway, and everyone jumped back out of the way. Now, it looks as if the situation is safe, and because this did not occur on the race course, there is not a yellow out. But Emerson Fittipaldi, terrible struggle this day, now runs in 9th, and with this stop, drops even further backwards. He was the first to identify, or at least react visibly to that tire blistering problem coming in very early on, and has then dropped back steadily, and now has worked his way up to 9th, and now he's back in here again, Bobby.
He's really having a bad day. They even lowered the car on him before the guy had the right rear on. So they're just not with it today. Looks like his chassis was sitting wrong. He's had it bad all day.
Second place, Danny Sullivan comes in. Let's go to Jack.
And a quick survey of the tire situation on Danny Sullivan's car looks as if indeed they may have not cured the problem but got it under control. Not a lot of serious blisters, but a report was that Danny may have had some sort of problem with his eye, an obstruction in it. They were going to give him a water bottle to spray it out, wash it out. They elected not to, and he's off and away after changing four. Back to you.
So Danny Sullivan, who had picked up the lead briefly there right after Rick Mears stopped, rolls back into the action. Rick Mears falls to second. Michael Andretti runs in third. He has not yet stopped, as has Mario Andretti.
Interesting small point. You know, Danny is a part owner of this track along with Roger Penske.
But Danny Sullivan rolls out of the pits and back into the competition. 130 miles are complete. Roger Penske continues to keep his team under control. As we take a look at Roger Penske's situation this year, they have certainly been a factor, and that factor has translated into dollars, but even more importantly for both of his drivers, translated into championship points. Well, it's Danny Sullivan at the top of that order right now, and Rick Mears running back in the fourth position in the points.
Well, both of the Penske cars are on the same lap together, and the only two cars that are on the same lap, and that pit stop was too early. That was a scheduled, non-scheduled stop. In other words, they would have liked to gone on around 140 laps. But what happens is they can make it to the end just barely, and so they were trying to get a tire reading. How hard are they really being on their tires? Everybody that's fast today is driving the race predicated on the right side tires.
We watch Rick Mears. Just ahead of him is Danny Sullivan. So with that stop, Danny Sullivan was able to maintain his lead. So there's going to be a lot of ribbing going on between Chuck Sprague, the crew chief for Sullivan, and Peter Parrott, the crew chief for Mears. The Sullivan crew was quick on both stops and have kept their driver out the lead. That's exactly what we alluded to. Those teams, the pit crews, are under tremendous pressure in their own right because they are, in fact, capable of grabbing a position and supporting that position as they've done here.
Well, the crews are under pressure not only to prepare a perfect car, but then to execute the perfect pit stops once the race begins. And it's interesting, the rivalry between the two Penske crews and how they like to try to get one up on each other. And until yesterday, when Sullivan seized the pole from Rick Mears, here's A.J. Foyt at the end of pit lane.
He slowed down
for this trouble.
As Foyt slowed down and came into the pits, the pace car begins to roll. The yellow is out for the first time of the day because we have a car, young John Andretti, against the wall about halfway through the fourth turn. He undoes the steering wheel and begins to unsnap his harness and climb out. So obviously he is not injured. It's right side damage, though severe to the car. Young John Andretti climbs out of what, in all likelihood, is his last ride of this season. So John Andretti brings out the first yellow at 136 miles. The leader is Danny Sullivan, followed by Mears, then the Andretti family, and Teo Fabi. Back at the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix, 139 laps complete. We are under yellow. Take a look at the top five in the field. The 98 car, Michael Andretti's curb machine, is on the hook. This was just a second ago. John Andretti is up in the back of the car, and he slides over. Now watch him. What he's looking for is Derek Daly, who apparently John Andretti feels was part of the conflict that brought John against the wall, and he points at him as if, you know what you did. Well, of course, on this circuit, we don't know exactly what the situation was, but apparently when you're running that close, things do happen. Now, the IndyCar drivers are benefit of great safety technology. One of those is the Horton Safety Team.
Like any medical clinic anywhere in the country, the Horton Safety Team Center takes care of sore throats, broken wrists, and the common cold. But here, the doctors wear fire suits, and the patients are all involved in racing.
90% of what we do is general medicine, family medicine. We're the family doctors to the CART community, and since our community travels from venue to venue every other weekend, we have to take our practice with us, and this is our office. It's where we do our general thing.
Then there is the other 10% of their work, and for that the facility goes from clinic to emergency room in no time at all.
We're equipped to do pretty much anything that could be done in a inner-city hospital emergency room for the worst of eventualities. Whatever comes through the door, we can take care of.
The unit is equipped with state-of-the-art technology, including a complete computerized medical history on all members. 3 doctors, a nurse, and a dozen firemen and paramedics travel to each race. But what impact have they had upon safety?
we're able to provide better care, more rapid care, rehabilitate people more quickly, and we've raised the consciousness in all the other racing venues that they can do better because this is the best it gets. And we set an example for what ought to be everywhere.
This professional approach has produced positive results. Statistics show quicker response and recovery from injuries, and for a driver, that means less time away from the sport.
Back on the course now, yellow flag. Danny Sullivan leads it. You look just ahead from Bobby Rahal's car, still rolling on the course. Under yellow, the fuel economy is better. Let's get a full update on the fuel situation. Here again is Jack.
Well, Paul, with all of these pit stops, and some of them unscheduled, and especially during this caution, fuel, which normally would not come into play here in this race, now does. Listen to this. Just about empty. That's Rick Mears. Right behind me is Danny Sullivan. He has about 10 gallons. But what's more important about what's going on in the Penske team right now is a conversation that Roger had with Derek Walker, the team manager for both Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan. He said, look, we're running first and second. We've got to be concerned, one, about tires, and two, about the situation with Michael Andretti in third. What should we do? Set a fast pace, set a slow pace? They said, let's try and set a little bit slower pace, but let's keep our eyes on Michael Andretti. If he starts to come in within striking distance, we'll pick the speed up and gamble on the fuel. Back to you.
Of course, Michael Andretti definitely within striking distance, lying in third place now, and with this yellow closes right up in the pack. As they came across the line under yellow, he was a mere 9 seconds back. When they come back to speed, he's going to be a whole lot closer.
Paul, that's the first time I think we've ever heard maybe that Penske is doing a game plan in between Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan, or within his own team. Usually they're totally separate. They go for broke any way they can do it. It looks like now, being that he's got first and second, that he's using the team to start worrying about Michael Andretti.
We watch Danny Sullivan as he picks the pace up now. Nick Finoro, the starter, has the green flag. It flies, and we are back to racing after the first and only yellow of this race so far. 144 miles of the 200 complete. And Danny Sullivan pulls just a bit away from his teammate Rick Mears. The key now becomes both Rick and Michael Andretti. More so Rick, because he is definitely in the points fight as we look at the top of the order.
Do you think, Bobby, speaking of the team aspect of it, that Roger would restrain Rick at this stage so as to get Danny the win and get in the points?
Sam, I never believed that would happen, but if we see that Rick doesn't make an attempt on, now here's Michael into the pits. This is that third place car they were worried about. So this could change the thinking that I was just starting to talk about.
Whoa! Michael Andretti with a quick pass through and an official there. So it probably had something to do with an official calculation rather than a pit stop.
Stop and go penalty. It just had to be, because that's all he wanted to do, is stop the tires from rotating for a second then on. But that really took Michael, put him in a bad position because it's under the green flag glass. But now we'll have to see, as I started to say, Sam, is Rick going to try to pass Danny Sullivan? If he does, that means that they're going for broke. If he doesn't, that means that Penske's running in from the pits.
So Michael Andretti in and out of the pits. Danny Sullivan still leads. Let's go to the pits. Brian Hammond.
The reason for the stop-and-go penalty was a pit entrance violation. Cart called him in, got the stop-and-go, he's back out on the track, but a pit entrance violation is what the stop-and-go was all about. Paul?
Well, pit violations have become factors in a couple of races this year, perhaps most notably when Danny Sullivan was leading at Toronto, where almost everyone in the field was called for a violation of just drifting out over a line that they wanted as an absolute barrier between the main straightaway and the pits. You see Danny Sullivan and Rick Mears now closed down behind Michael Andretti, who with that violation went one lap down, and certainly can see both of those cars behind him, and the last thing he wants is for one of them to catch him.
Well, they really need, for their benefit, Penske cars need to put a lap on Michael. Michael, of course, doesn't want that to happen. He wants a yellow flag now so he can come back in and be right behind him.
So Michael Andretti trying to hold off the charging Danny Sullivan, who is the leader. Rick Mears is right behind. Michael Andretti is still scored in third place, and Mario Andretti still in fourth, followed by the Porsche power of Teo Fabi. We'll be right back. Factor. Back at Pennsylvania International, Danny Sullivan is the leader, followed by Rick Mears, his teammate. Michael Andretti is in third place. But Michael is trying desperately to keep from having the leaders come around him and put him further down. He is a full lap behind. As we take a look at the top of the order, only the Penske cars run on the lead lap.
Well, it would appear Rick is not trying to pass Danny, so it would appear, unless it comes easy, that Penske is running this from the pits right now, and that he's calculating he wants to maybe keep the cars just in first and second, and maybe in the last 20 laps you'll say, okay, boys, go for it. It's your race.
We alluded to it before. That is that normally the word is that Roger Penske does not influence the conduct individually of the two cars, but it seems logical that they're doing that now.
All right, but let's say Roger Penske does not call out any orders to his two drivers. Do you think Rick Mears might just let Danny have it, knowing the championship situation? These two men have worked very closely together. They have mutual respect for each other. Rick has been national champion. Do you think he might just let Danny have it, keep the pressure off?
No, I find that highly unlikely because Rick is in the fight, currently fourth in the fight. A win here would put him in contention. It wouldn't put him up near the lead, but he would still be in contention with Danny Sullivan. I don't think Rick Mears is of the mentality ever to let anyone walk away with it.
What do you think, Bob?
No, I totally agree with Paul, Sam. It just isn't like Rick to do that. This is a race. He's not worried about the championship. He's really worried about the race. They take them one at a time like that, and they don't really know what the points are while they're driving the car anyway.
Let's go to the pits again, Jack.
Paul, we're seeing a classic display for, as you said, possibly the first time of team driving by the Penske team. Over here is the Danny Sullivan team, and directly behind me, led by Roger Penske, is the Rick Mears team. 3 separate occasions in the last 5 laps, Roger has crossed all the way over here to talk to Derek Walker and say, what are you going to do? Let's put Michael Andretti a lap down. He intimated to Derek Walker that either Danny will do it or we'll send Rick to the front, put him a lap down so we don't have to worry about Michael Andretti. But here's the other factor, too. The tires are cold, and they're not trying to heat them up too fast because of the blistering problem. So there's a lot of strategy going on right now, and Penske is calling the shots for 2 cars.
And you can bet that Penske is loving it. This is his form of relaxation. He loves to get involved with all the subtleties of the battle, and I've never seen him this involved before.
No, and you know, these two crews just love to go at each other, not only on the racetrack, but the rest of the time, too. And it has been acknowledged right along that Rick Mears was the better oval track racer than Danny Sullivan, until yesterday when Danny put that car on the pole. And then, as I understand it, the Sullivan crew wandered over to the Rick Mears crew and said, well, is your boy starting to lose it a little bit here on the oval?
Well, now, prior to Danny Sullivan's win at Portland, he had a tremendous winless streak stretching back 29 races to 1986. We asked him, did he feel any outside pressure when he was not winning?
Other than what came from internally, there was no pressure at all. Roger never said anything. Nobody on the team ever said anything. And we were all aware of it. But you have to remember that in '86, Rick Mears went without a win, and that was almost unheard of as well. Where he going that long, and he only had 1 win in '87. So I think the team and everybody within realized that the problems we had just with equipment and that we were giving it our all. But I'm sure there was some doubts in the back of people's minds, and we had some good races, but we also didn't do very well in a lot of the other places. But Roger never said anything to me. I mean, there were rumors going around that I was going to be removed and this and that. It never happened. I mean, he and I have maintained a very good relationship throughout. Obviously, he felt the pressure, too, because he wants to win. And I'm not saying that there weren't conflicts, but it just, it wasn't a thing where there was ever a threat of my job or anything, or if there was, I was not aware of it.
The Roger Penske's team at the top of the order with Danny Sullivan leading this race, and Danny Sullivan really doing a magnificent job, encouraged by the possibility of a championship, something he's never been this close to before.
You know, for a driver to be truly complete, he has to have had a stretch drive for the championship. There are other things, too. You really have to be injured, oddly enough, at some point in your career and prove that you can come back and put the fear of injury behind you. You have to have won big races. There's a whole lot of stuff that a great driver has got to have accomplished in his career. The stretch drive for the championship is one thing Danny Sullivan has been missing. He's involved in it now and looking good.
Well, Sam, just a little note, they might have told Danny Sullivan to go ahead and pass Michael, but he's not been able to catch him so far.
Well, tomorrow, ABC's NFL Monday Night Football features an AFC West battle when John Elway and the defending AFC champion Denver Broncos host the Los Angeles Raiders. Action begins live at 8 o'clock Eastern tomorrow on ABC Sports. At Pennsylvania International Raceway, Danny Sullivan, followed by Rick Mears, followed by Michael Andretti. Michael is 1 lap back. He is the defending champion here, but with a good showing at this track. It's a year that has not been as satisfactory as Michael would have liked, and he's indicated he moves on to a new team next year, and the best indication is that that will be with his father, Mario, as we take a look at the top of the order. Now down through Raul Boisel, who currently runs in 6th place, Guerrero, Fittipaldi, the top 10 positions here on the track. But no one truly in contest. They're being very careful.
Well, they have to be, Paul, because they still have about 30 laps left, and they don't know what their tires are going to be. Everybody here today doesn't have to worry about fuel. They have to worry about how much rubber are they going to have left like the last 10 laps, because the last 10 to 15 laps is when you're going to really see the race go off like a stick of dynamite, I think.
Danny Sullivan leads. This broadcast is being produced under the authority granted by Championship Auto Racing teams for the private use of our audience. Any reproduction of this broadcast in any form without the express written permission of Championship Auto Racing teams is expressly prohibited.
It was exactly 1 year ago that Roger Penske hired a man named Nigel Bennett to be his designer. Now, Nigel Bennett at that point was designing for the Lola car company, which was so successful. The minute Penske hired him, the entire look of Penske racing began to change for the better. Look at the domination these two cars are enjoying today. Less problem with the tires than the other men had. More speed nonetheless. Immaculate preparation. A lot of this can be laid to the presence now on the team of a man named Nigel Bennett, an Englishman. And incidentally, Danny Sullivan and Nigel Bennett used to work together for Lola years ago. So I think Bennett's presence on the team has been a particular tonic to Danny Sullivan. Maybe just that bit more than to Rick Mears.
Average speed of the race for Danny Sullivan is now just above 146 miles an hour on the mile here at Pennsylvania International. Sullivan continues his lead. Pennsylvania International, Paul Page with Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, Jack Arute, and Brian Hammonds. Danny Sullivan is our leader. Rick Mears in second. Michael Andretti is back now on the tail end of the leader lap, trying to chase down the two Penske cars and do battle with them. Mario Andretti, his father, sits just behind. Teo Fabi with a really excellent run today. Sits in 5th, followed by Boisel, Guerrero, Fittipaldi, Lyondike, Derek Daly, John Jones, and Kevin Cogan is 12th. Bobby Rahal back in 13th position as his chance for another repeat at a championship seems to be going away. Now, let's go to the pits, looking ahead more to next year. A report from Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, the pivotal team in making all of these moves is this one here, the Craco team that is running Michael Andretti. As you know, Bobby Rahal is coming over from True Sports Racing to take over the controls of the team for next year. Michael Andretti, where is he going? A lot of speculation, and we have learned from sources within the Carl Haas organization that on the Tuesday or Wednesday prior to Laguna Seca, they will announce in Chicago, Illinois, most likely, that there will be not only a two-car team with Andretti, Michael, and Mario in the Carl Haas organization next year, but they have secured the 6th Chevrolet engine. So that mysterious Chevrolet, who is going to get the other engine, will go to the Carl Haas organization. Now, let's add to this who's going to drive True Sports. We checked with the sources within the True Sports organization, and here's what we have as of today. It seems like a lock to replace Bobby Rahal will be Jeff Brabham from Indiana. Brabham, who's running in the IMSA GTP organization this year, will come in and take over the primary ride. But here's the kicker. Scott Pruitt from the International Race of Champions. Remember, he won the race out at Riverside, California. He's being bandied about in a second car from the True Sports organization for 8 to 10 races. The only thing holding that up is sponsorship. More on this as we get to Miami, I'm sure. Let's go back up to you.
Well, when you're talking Pruitt and Brabham, you can't go wrong there. Michael Andretti, the way it was handled, it seemed to be a surprise to a lot of people, but fairly early in the season, there was pretty good indication that Michael would be leaving Maury Cranes' team and move on to other pastures. So the question to Michael really seems to be one of changing teams in mid-season and how it might affect the relationship with his crew.
First of all,
it's a separate issue. You know, I mean, that was between myself and the car owner, and you know, whereas the team, they have nothing to do with that decision, and we're just professionals. We're going out there. I still have a job to do, and you know, hopefully we still got a shot at the championship. You know, we're not giving up, and if we don't win the championship, we still want to win some races. So believe me, I'm driving as hard as I can.
Well, one thing can be assured, the fire to win burns just as brightly in Barry Green and all of those crew members as it does in the heart of Michael Andretti. They don't much care at all what the driver's going to do in the future. They care about winning today. The man who cares the most is Danny Sullivan. He is out in front, but Rick Mears is closing down.
Well, we've been watching that, Paul. Rick is just slowly pulling up. It reminds you of a coyote getting ready to go after some fresh meat there, because he's just getting close enough to Danny to where he says, hey, I'm going to get you, because we're getting down to that 20, 15 laps from the end now, pretty close.
And Rick Mears is a hunter. He loves to go out there. You know, one thing, the race fan loves all these driver changes with the teams. That's the stuff that really fuels the rumor mill. But what the team managers are really looking for, not necessarily the world's fastest driver, because when you think about it, the top 8 or 10 men out here, I think we're going to see Rick Mears coming into a pit stop. Jack, are you there?
Sam, indeed I am, and they're waiting on Rick Mears as he comes to the end of pit road, hustling down towards the service, led by Roger Penske, who's holding the pit board. So remarkable that Penske, with so many millions under his belt, still calls the shots of this team. It is a blistered right front tire that has caused this unscheduled pit stop. Now, they haven't even bothered to add any fuel. We already alluded to the fact that they were empty, but they had to get that tire off. This will be costly. And now they've got a problem. They don't have the wheel nut back on in the right front yet, and Rick was waving it off, but they put the car back up. This is very costly. A miscue on the Penske team. So abnormal, but they had the wherewithal to be able to stay in here and get it right. Now they have, and they are off and away. A long stop and a costly one. Back up to you.
You saw out at the right front wheel there as Jerry Breon takes that blistered wheel and tire off and throws it over the wall. That crew disappointed with the situation. A very patient crew chief, Peter Parrott, as he just gently motioned to Rick, hold on, we have a further problem. This is such a disciplined, such a drilled team. They never, ever seem to be in a hurry.
You never let your emotions flare in the car.
Boy,
it's possible.
And Sam, you hardly ever see that team make that mistake.
Yeah.
But you notice that Pete Parrott, like Paul said, doesn't let his boy leave that pit until he knows that car's right.
They made one mistake. They're not going to compound it by making another. They put it behind them as fast as they can.
Danny Sullivan continues to work his way around as the miles click away under his speeding Penske machine. Rick Mears trying now to catch up. Rick fell all the way to 5th place, and you saw, well, you see now, Danny Sullivan is closing down on Teo Fabi. Fabi is running in 4th place. So Sullivan in the lead, closing in, and Rick Mears, not satisfied with the tire that they just gave him, is back into the pits once again.
Or is the wheel
car
still
rolls to a stop? Perhaps they didn't get that tire and wheel assembly fully on.
4 tires again, Paul Page. The 4 that went on, they're coming off with just 2 laps on them, and they're putting 4 brand new tires back on. This is unusual for the Penske operation.
Jack, the question is, did they put on tires on that last stop before this one that were used earlier in the race?
It looks as if indeed they did, Paul. And remember, you know, when you have a blistering problem, you're pulling tires off mostly before you really need to take them off, and if you can keep the heat in them and they're satisfied with the way they're working, but you take your tires out of rotation as well, because you blister a right front, you've got to put a different right front on. So there's a lot of permutations that maybe Bobby and Sam could get a little more into, but when you've got a tire problem, especially as sensitive as these cars are, there's a lot of experimentation that goes on down on pit road.
Bobby?
And Jerry Breon on that pits calls the tire shots. Jerry wasn't happy with it. Maybe he figured that they did grab the wrong tires, and Jerry says, get him back in.
Well, you know it had to be something serious, because we have just 10 laps to go, and Rick could have ridden out an imbalanced tire. You know what I mean? It had to be something that would have threatened the car out there.
As we suggested earlier, Rick learned a lot from his accident at Santerre. Safety was a big part of that. He learned how to protect himself, and where he might have tried to ride it out before, he certainly will not try and do it now. Rick Mears has dropped back in the field now to 7th place. His teammate, Danny Sullivan, leads. Being chased now by Michael Andretti, just 18 seconds back. Mario is 3rd. Sullivan charges, leading at Pennsylvania International now with just 8 miles to go of the 200 scheduled distance. He is also, if we finish exactly as we see it, at the top of the points order in the fight for the national championship. So he will retain the points lead if he can only stay here. But that seems to be a rather large if. His teammate Rick Mears was chasing, and suddenly a blistered tire brought him in, and just in 2 quick little stops to correct that problem, dropped all the way back to 7th place. On board with Bobby Rahal, who is having a dismal run as he sits back, running in 12th position right now.
Now, Danny, remember, Paul, Danny is getting the information from what happened to Rick. Rick took one hard run at Danny. His tires just went away immediately, which meant they were on the verge of it. All this information has been related to Danny, and he's just not, or relayed to Danny, he's just not going to make that mistake.
Can you imagine the frustration Bobby Rahal is experiencing now, having come into this race very much in contention for the championship, now faced late in the race with watching the previous leader of the championship, Danny Sullivan, extending his lead and pulling away from him on the track.
Danny Sullivan, with 5 laps to go, darts under Emerson Fittipaldi, another contender at the beginning of the day in the points fight, but who will finish now if he maintains his position in 8th place, as Danny Sullivan continues to charge with apparently no major problems on the car. Santos.
No, and you know, we've talked so much about Danny, but just remember Roger Penske, his team with Rick Mears won Indianapolis. Danny would, as of this moment, be almost prohibitive favorite for the national championship. That means, you see there, Derek Walker in Danny's pit. That means that the Roger Penske organization will have swept everything of value in IndyCar racing this year, the Indy 500 and the national championship, if this continues. So today is a pivotal day, a very significant one in the championship.
And everybody would like to have the Penske cars right now, wouldn't they, say?
Wouldn't they, though?
The fastest thing going at the moment.
Absolutely, and you'd like to drive for that team.
Of course, the indication is that the Penske cars that are driving now, and by the way, the one that Danny is in fact the one that he won at Portland, and the Penske cars are in fact for sale. Indications are that Andy Kenneth Penske may be bidding on a couple, and certainly Frank Arciero's team has already indicated that they want one for next year, but fitted not with Chevrolet but with Cosworth engines.
Yes,
1 lap to go. The white flag is out for Danny Sullivan. Can he get through this lap? The tires have been a problem, but Sullivan has been very smooth throughout the day. Michael Andretti is 12 seconds back, so if there would be any stutter at all in this machine, Michael could close and charge. But Danny Sullivan seems well on his way to a checkered flag and well on his way to a victory for Roger Penske as he scores it. Sullivan wins for Penske at Penske's own racetrack.
The fuel held out, the tires held out. Danny did a good job. They played a team. They beat Mario and Michael just because of the teamwork.
Michael comes across the line, finishing this race in 2nd place. Mario, if he maintains position, will come across the line in 3rd place. So now it is Danny Sullivan that is the winner here at Pennsylvania International Raceway in the Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix. The Penske team absolutely dominated the situation here.
Well, there he comes into the pits. The tires are still good, no problem. They dominated this whole race. Danny said on the pole, one of these days not too far away, they're going to say, hey, he's a good oval racetrack driver.
The average speed of the race, unofficially, 148.53 miles an hour, breaking the previous fastest ever mile run. That was a record set at 138 miles an hour at Phoenix in 1987. So Danny Sullivan is our winner at Pennsylvania International. 2nd place, unofficially, Michael Andretti, then Mario. Teo Fabi is the Sullivan car, and Roger Penske already in the winner's circle. Fabi is 4th. Raul Boesel runs in 5th. We'll be back to talk with Danny Sullivan right after this. Well, a record mile race has been won, and Danny Sullivan has won it. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, Danny Sullivan, congratulations. A great victory, and you really need it in this stretch drive for the championship.
Well, I did. You know, this is critical. A short oval. I've never won here. Pole win. It was great. I tell you, I owe a big thanks to Rick, because we had a plan beforehand to let him get through the first corner, and then he'd break traffic for me. And then when I got in the lead, he sat 2nd for me. I mean,
let's talk about that plan, because we witnessed it from Roger Penske and Derek Walker's side of things down on pit road. And, you know, we've always talked about the fact that you guys are allowed to go racing and race for position. But today, the plan really was put into effect. I've never seen Penske as animated in calling the shots, especially when it came to putting Michael Andretti a lap down.
Well, he was, and it was a good plan because the 2 races previous, we'd seen where the outside front row guy had gotten chopped or knocked into the wall. We didn't want that. We wanted to run as a team, break our way through traffic. I needed the points, and Rick needed to win the race or be right up there. So that was a plan, and I had to go with that. And then we said, okay, at the last 50 laps, we'll figure out then how to go racing.
Tire blisters. When you saw it developing on the right side, how concerned were you?
Well, I was very concerned because what happened is the car was handling great. We were running fast, and then all of a sudden down in 3, the car just moved on me and got out of shape. I thought I had a puncture, and I was concerned that I didn't want it to happen in the middle of the corner. It was a concern for everybody, but it wasn't anything that was evil.
Well, there was no evil for Danny Sullivan today as he takes the congratulations and the trophy here this afternoon, but the man that finished second is with Brian Hammonds. Brian?
Michael Andretti did finish second, but had it not been for a stop-and-go penalty, you might have repeated as winner here. What happened there?
Barry Green called me in, and then he said stay out, and it was too late. I couldn't make the turn because I had a blistered right front tire, and then I had to use escape road, and they black flagged me because of that. It was a shame.
With that in mind, with the blistering tire problem, were you trying to run as hard as you could to catch the leaders?
Well, yeah. I mean, in the end, I was running some 21.2 laps, which is a lot quicker than I qualified, and the car was on rails. I think if we would have been, equal with him on the track, I think we would have passed him and been able to win it.
Second place, some valuable points. Are you still in the running for the championship, in your opinion?
We're not giving up.
Michael Andretti, second place to Dave. Jack?
Michael? Well, Ben Dixon from the sponsoring organization here is about ready to make the presentation to Danny Sullivan, emblematic of his victory here in a racetrack where he's a minority owner. Can you believe that? The owner takes home part of the cash today. Back up to you, Paul.
Well, for Danny Sullivan, it's a 10th career win and ties him with such great names as Louis Chevrolet, Frank Lockhart, and Peter DiPaolo with 10 wins for their careers. Michael Andretti with a new experimental Cosworth engine comes in second. As we take a look now at the rest of the top order, here, the official finish at Pennsylvania International Raceway for the 200-miler. Now, let's go back to the pits. Jack Arute is with Rick Mears.
Well, Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, your teammate, credits you with a lot of the reason why he was able to go to victory lane. A tough break to drop you from 2nd to 7th with that blistered tire. But first, why did you have to come back in? Was there another problem with the tires?
Well, we weren't sure. I went back out and the car was very nervous. The rear end was very loose on it, and I was afraid maybe I had some trouble with the right rear tire that we didn't change, or maybe one of the fronts were on wrong. And when I came back in and changed all 4 tires, I found out the only problem was really just the hot rear tires with the cold front just made it that way. So. But I just couldn't take a chance on it.
Well, he's been in a point chase before, but this man is embroiled in it, and we saw something today, Roger Penske, that, to my knowledge, I've never seen before, and that was really you playing with a 2-car team, trying to use the strategy. Danny alluded to it in the Victory Lane interview. He said, we don't like to do it, but with this racetrack and with the points and everything else that we've had to do today, we had to use both cars to be able to ensure that Danny would stay in the points chase.
Well, I think, Jack, it is one of those races. It's so tough here to pass, and it's fast. And, one mistake, Danny's trying to win the championship with Al Jr. going out early and Ray Hall having a problem. You could see that. It was a matter of staying out of trouble. On the other hand, you got to keep running. So, Rick set the pace, and we didn't want to have the fellas push each other up into the traffic. That was the key thing they talked about prior to the race, and you could see that all day. But at the end, when Rick had the tire problem, we came in and he said it didn't feel right, and it's just not worth it. We made the wrong call. We should have changed all 4 tires instead of just the fronts.
Well, you made the right call, though, because Danny Sullivan made it to victory lane, and he's the guy that's in the points chase right now with but 2 races left on the schedule. Paul?
And really only 4 men have a shot for winning the PPG Cup. The battle will obviously go to Miami, where we will cover the final race of the season. Now let's go back to the pits and Brian Hammonds.
Al Holbert, the team manager for Porsche, you have to be extremely pleased. 4th place, your best finish ever.
We're very pleased. The fact is now I think that our driver can have confidence in the team, and we can start to see what he's made of.
You just came back from Germany with some good news, didn't you?
Sort of. I think you would say that. I'm a sports car fan, as you know, but the fact is our Quaker State Indy program has been given the top priority with a commitment for the next few years that should really bring our effort up to the top where it belongs.
Porsche trying to climb near the top of IndyCar racing. Paul?
The race has been run. The Penske team has dominated. Danny Sullivan has won and continues at the top of the PPG points fight. The Bosch Spark Plug Grand Prix has been brought to you by Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. By Pennzoil, the motor oil that gives you world-class protection. By Budweiser, proud sponsor of the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. This Bud's for you. And by First Brands Corporation, makers of STP oil treatment. Tomorrow, on ABC's NFL Monday Night Football, the Los Angeles Raiders take on the Denver Broncos. And Saturday, ABC's college football features a Pac-10 battle between the number 2 ranked UCLA Bruins and the Washington Huskies. Or it's a Big Ten matchup when the Michigan State Spartans host the Iowa Hawkeyes. Check the local listings for the game in your area. Promotion